Picked the wrong week to quit sniffing glue.
Hello, my friends. Welcome. Going to start a new project today. New week and a new project. And, you know, I was going to try to be all cryptic and mysterious about what the project was going to be. And then I heeded the words of the modern-day prophet Paul Simon when he said, "No need to be coy, Roy. Just get yourself free." What we're working on is the Jupiter 2. And I'm going to hoist the Jupiter 2 up here so that you can see how big of a kit this is for those who are not familiar with it. 18 inches. And you'll say, "Hey, Lou, didn't you build one of those?" And I say, "Yes, I did build one of these a while ago." So long ago that I wasn't even doing weekly videos at the time. So it's been a while. And I generally don't like to repeat myself. I say I don't like to repeat myself, and it's true. I don't like to repeat myself. But I'll repeat myself on this occasion because I was given a challenge. And I like a challenge. I mean, not something stupid like, you know, build a model while hopping on one foot or taking all the labels off of your paint colors and working that way. No, this was a case of I was provided the kit. A friend of mine wanted me to build him a kit and put the stock lighting in it. And by the stock lighting, I mean the prescribed Moebius light kit for the Jupiter 2. And this is one step above. You know, normally you would go out, and I would go out and get a circuit board from Ralph at Tenant Controls or Randy at Voodoo FX, and I would do all of that work and to put that circuit in. Well, it takes it one step further because it's already done. All of the wiring has been accomplished. All you need to do is literally plug and play. Here is the plug. Here is the play. All of these are pre-wired, pre-resisted, pre-everything. All you got to do is make the holes and stick it down. So I thought that was a good enough challenge. I'll go ahead and do that. Sure. Should take some of the take a lot of the brain work out of it, which frankly at my age I can appreciate. So the first thing we need to do before we get started on all of this is to, I've read through the lighting kit instructions numerous times, and there are some kit parts that we have to do some adapting to first, right off the bat, before we do anything. Now, I have not even washed these parts yet, and I have to say, the first Jupiter 2 that I built was very early. It was a very early kit. It was, you know, obviously from the first run of the things. I don't know how or where this particular kit, where in the production it is coming from, but Lord Almighty, it's got flash. It's got Flash Gordon galore, and so I'm thinking maybe the molds are, maybe it's to the end of the use of the tooling cycle. I don't know. But we're going to get started on this, and the first thing I said I need to do is to pull out the parts that I need to be drilling holes in. They specify, you know, do this and then continue on with your building. But they tell you, for example, the holes for the lights in the wheel wells. I've been making too many cars lately. In the fenders, in the landing gear wells. Tells you what size, doesn't tell you what size of hole to make, but it does tell you where it needs to go. So I need to figure out which LED is going in that hole and make sure the hole that I drill is the appropriate sized hole. And then once I've got these kit parts adapted, then I'll go ahead and put the primer coat on them. But I don't know if you can see it, whether you can see in the lighting. Look at all the funky tool marks. The mold mark on here. I don't remember the original one being that bad, so you can really tell where the mold has been, where the tool has been polished. Yeah, there you can see some of them. Wow, wowzer! And those will come straight through the primer. If you didn't put a primer coat, those will come straight through. So I definitely need to be taking care of those. So let's get the parts out, and this is going to be a fun build, but it's also going to be a cumbersome build because of the size of everything. So I may not be able to have everything on the table at one time. Let me show you what I'm talking about. This is how much the hull takes up. I mean, the whole table is taken up already, and I haven't even really started anything. So, and then I've got the box over here with the majority of the parts that I haven't even taken out of the box yet. Okay, we have identified the first stumbling block, and that is there are two different sizes of LEDs. So I can't simply go through everything with one drill bit and drill out all the holes the same size. So what I can do is use that one drill bit and drill out everything to the smaller size, and then when I hit instances where it needs to be larger, then I can ream those out a little bit bigger. But without chasing down each individual bulb to see what size it needs to be, that seems to be the best way to expedite the drilling or expedite the hole making. And then for those instances, like I said, where I have to enlarge them, I can. But for right now, I think that seems to be the way to go. Pulling out everything and making sure that it does in fact work. And it is all, these are all very well labeled. I mean, even I would say exceedingly so, as far as, you know, that's really huge lettering. You probably could have gotten away with a little bit less than that, but hey, better to overcompensate than to not compensate enough. So the ones I was most interested in right away are these little ones for the landing gear wells. So let me pull out the appropriate implements and make with some hole making. And we're off. We've got the first holes drilled in the landing gear wells. I just started the holes for the three main console lights that will come up through the floor here, and these are the larger sized bulbs, so I have to elongate or embiggen. I have to embiggen the holes here, and wouldn't you know it, that one went straight through where there's a reinforcing rod, so, or a reinforcing spine in the bottom of the floor, so that's going to have to be cut away. But I think I can. Somewhere in here, yes, I have a little wee reamer, and I can just ream these holes out big enough to fit the new bulbs. And that's, if I'm remembering right, it is green on the outsides, yellow in the center. So these will go in something like that and poke up through the floor. But this will tell me how far down I need to push this thing, and, you know, measure twice, ream once, or just do a little bit at a time so that these have a nice snug fit to them. I mean, yeah, you can always pack the CA or the epoxy in around them, but I'd rather go for a tight fit on the bulbs to start with. I got to put the mat back down over top of this glass top of the table. It's not only is it giving me a bunch of reflections, but it's threatening every time I drop a metal tool on it to do a nasty on this table. So first thing I need to do once I get all this stuff sorted is to put the cutting mat back down. I'm just going to do one little clean little swipe here with the blade to clean out the burrs. I swear that's okay. Ugh. I really don't want to have to get out the larger drill bit just to make these bigger holes. There we go. That's cooking. That's the way we want it. Continuing with the vandalism, the massacre, the naked cutting into parts on the hull that need to accept lighting. And each of the each of the landing gear wells, get it straight, each of the landing gear wells has a need to be drilled out right about here. One for a switch, one for the power jack, and one for the fusion core switch. And because I'm a neat freak, or at least try to be, I want them all to be consistent. So there is a built-in detail piece inside that. Well, see that little ball there? That little ball's got to go, because that's right about where that switch is going to go. So, of course, drilling out a ball is not the easiest thing to do. So you start by making a little leading hole with a X-Acto, because it's got a very sharp point on it. And I can find the very top of that ball with the X-Acto and start my hole just by spinning it. Once I've got enough of a gripper there that I can set this tiny pin vise drill into, then that will make it easier to make a second hole, a second divot that I can use as a guide for the big Dremel. And then I can Dremel out the offending raised ball and make room for all of these switches, which is what I'll do right now. Okay, so I'm continuing with the lighting, or rigging up the lights, and all my years of untangling Christmas bulbs have certainly come in handy for this. They've done a devious thing here, and I don't know whether it was malice or just not paying attention. But these are all the ceiling lights, and for some odd reason, they are all the same size except one. And since I don't know which one is going to go into which hole yet, I'm just going to cut them all out the same smaller size, and then I'll have to adapt this one on the fly once I get the holes put in the rings. This is the ceiling fixture, and they're going to go in here to light downwards. And like I said, I was surprised to see one stray bigger bulb. The rest of them are smaller. So always a fun thing. And also we need to start paying attention to where the wiring goes, not necessarily lining up the pictures, because we're coming to the point where the wiring in the pictures, like this big braided wire here. Sorry, I had to sneeze. See this big braided wire, this big twisted stranded wire? That's not what it looks like in real life. So here is that same wire. Neither one of them are twisted. So you have to start looking at the labeling and not necessarily how it looks in the pictures. Now, I've got the three main things in. I'm not wild about how much this is sticking up. It's entirely possible that this will have to be pushed over to its side and folded down when we come time to try to close up the ship. I don't know how much of an angle the upper hull is going to allow there, but I can see particularly on the power cord here how this is sticking way up high. And once, actually I could start taking some of these labels off now that they're in place and I know what they're doing. And there is a battery pack wire on here. It says battery. I guess if you wanted to try to run this off a battery, that's where you would plug it in, although I don't see any instructions for that, or how you would access said battery pack. So we might just have to clip those off so as to avoid unnecessary confusion. But I've got the two boards kind of separated out from each other, and those will get hot glued into place. I've got them marked out according to the diagram or the photo that was in the instructions as far as where they need to go so as to chase the wiring the right way. But at this point I just need to finish taking some of these smaller pieces and drilling the LED holes in them. Good morning everybody, it's Tuesday, welcome back. If the table looks ever so slightly cleaner, it's because the big hull pieces, the big pieces plus the floor and the ceiling piece are all outside right now, having had their first coat of the gray primer put on them. And I gotta tell you, if you're gonna tackle this Jupiter 2 build, you need to get yourself 2, maybe 3 cans of this. This is your Duplicolor primer sealer, because it's gonna take it to give everything you need a good finishing. You cannot spray that hull with an airbrush. You have got to use a spray can on that. You could use a power roller on it if you wanted to. but it is a lot of acreage, and it takes a good amount of paint. That's why you put the primer on. The primer's cheap. It's cheaper than top coat color. You put the primer on, you give it a nice sanding with a high grit sanding pad, and then you put your silver over top of it, and your silver doesn't have to work as hard. Plus it goes down nice and smooth and doesn't pick up any of the underlying swirls from the plastic. Primer should be your first go-to. And now I am putting checking the walls here. Last night I went ahead and matched up the right and left sections of the walls, the wall halves, and joined those all together with some MEK, the methyl ethyl ketone, the glue that I use, and did some of these sidewall bits. And I'm getting these all ready to be primed as well. And while I'm doing all of that, I'm turning my attention to the landing gear themselves. I worked on the wells yesterday to put the holes in them for all the wiring, and that's why you see all the wiring over there. And I must say that these landing gear are a mess, and I don't remember having as much problem with them the first time, and then I kicked myself and realized, no, you didn't, because you used the Paragraphics landing gear replacement set, which is much superior to the stock landing gear. But stock landing gear is the order of the day for this, and there is a gigundous amount of flash on all of these. I picked up one, I guess it was one bad tree here, which is no relation to One Tree Hill. One bad tree here, and it had horrible seams and everything going down the middle of it. Unlucky, I don't think the other two of these are as bad. Well, my luck, I picked the worst one out first to start cleaning. And these landing gear have to be the way they are attached into the hull. They have to go in a lot earlier than I would be comfortable with, which is another reason the bottom hull is outside getting this primer coat on it, because the landing gear have to kind of go up inside those wells even before you can put the sides of the wells in from the underside, which necessitated putting them in early. I would much rather have had these landing gear be something that could be snapped into the finished hull. However, I could see when I look at the way they're engineered, you kind of need them to be done the way they were, simply to hold the weight of the ship, because everything is held on this cantilever joint right there, and if it's not put in there good and strong, then you get the chance that these landing gear could splay out, and under the weight of that ship, that's not a good thing. So it's got to be done that way. So the only thing I could think to do at this point is to go ahead and clean up all of the parts for the three parts here that make up the stairs themselves. Clean all three sets of those and get those ready for the primer coat next. Okay, it's actually time to start painting, if you believe it or not, on the Jupiter 2, but luckily I know a dude who makes painting masks for this kit, so should be fairly easy. The floor is the first thing I want to do, obviously, because it has to go into the bottom hull, and then that lighting kit has to go in. Actually, parts of the lighting kit have to go in first, and then the floor. So I've painted this area where the bottom of the lift is, that's silver. I will mask that and then paint the floor color, and then put the brown vinyl in the center there. As part of my painting masks, I supply a piece of vinyl that will give you a nice glossy floor. That way you don't have to try to paint a perfect circle. You just use the mask or use the piece of vinyl as the floor. So we're going to let that dry. I'm going to put together the landing gear next, I think, since those parts have all been painted, and we can work on getting that situated into the bottom hull, as well as the I'm also made masks for all the little openings on the fusion core. So we can go ahead and put the fusion core circuit in and the clear bit that goes in with it. Now the clear bit has to be glued in and then masked off. I'm looking around feverishly, see if I can find where I put it. Here it is. This is not the one. This is because the one I'm not using the fins out version. I'm using the fins in version, and the fins in version has already been glued to the bottom of the hull. But you can see now where I've got the masks, and what I need to do at this point is scuff this up and frost it and get it ready to be glued into the other hull piece. Okay, it may not look like much, but it's not a lot. This is where we're going to leave it today. I've got the base brown on some of the walls, all of the raised sections on these walls that get the darker brown. Those have been put down. I've got the landing gear glued up, and those are going to get a coat of primer on them now that they've been cleaned up. I've got various other parts of the ship and various other parts of the house. I've got the reddish brown painted on the floor, but that's outside drying. And hopefully tomorrow we can start putting some of this stuff together. Greetings, fellow babies. It is Wednesday morning, and I am back to trying to do one thing at a time. You know, yesterday I was starting to feel a bit overwhelmed because the desk was just full up with Jupiter 2 goodness, but still I wasn't feeling like I was getting any one thing done. It's because I was pulling out the brown paint and painting everything that needed brown, even if I wasn't going to be working on it in the near future, that kind of thing. And it's important to do that kind of stuff, but it can bog you down when you are trying to make linear progress through a kit. And not to get too philosophical on you there, but linear progress is what I need to do today. There are certain things that must be done in a certain order so that you can do the next thing, that kind of stuff. I am putting in the landing gear today. I have just pulled them all out. The work that I did yesterday, sanded it up, primed it again, and pulled them out and attached them to the bottom half of the hull. Now, before I go any further, I need to do these wee doors. The wee doors that go at the top of each of the wheel wells, the landing gear bay, the landing gear wells, the fenders. Yes, I have been working on too many cars lately. The landing gear enclosures. Because the next step is putting these sides in, and I can't really do them that well with before. I can't really put these back walls in very easily if I've got the sidewalls in. So I've got to get these painted and put in place, and then I've got to figure out, okay, is that going to be my final paint scheme? Because the underside of this is still all primer gray, will have to be painted a metallic of some sort. Not a bright chrome or anything, but it's going to get a bit of a metallic look to it. Now I've got masks for all of these windows. That's something I'm prepared to do. But what I really want to do today is to put the lighting rig in and then put the floor on top of it. But to do that, I have to do all of the steps that lead up to that, and one of which is to get these gear wells filled in. So I have made the masks for the tiny wee doors. I need to paint the lighter color on the tiny wee doors because that's the area that gets masked off, and the lighter color is well, let me check my references on it, because in some cases, the lighter color is the interior. The indents are the lighter color. So let me check to make sure that that is accurate with these as well. And looking at the instructions, I'm not seeing. Yeah, the majority of the cases, the indents, the inside is the lighter gray color, and that's what needs to get painted first. You paint those first, and then you mask them, and then you paint the darker color around the outside. So I've gone another round. I've painted all of the light gray inside these door recesses, and we're going to let that dry, and then we'll come back and mask those and paint the entire outside frame of the doors a darker gray color. And then I can get on with the, actually I think what I'm going to do right now is give these sidewalls of the gear wells, give them an actual gray color. Right now it's only gray primer, which is nice, but I want something that's got a little bit better of a finish on it, so I'm just going to pull out a medium gray or neutral gray and do the sidewalls here. Alrighty, the doors have all been masked off. The inner parts, the parts that need to stay this lighter gray, have been masked off, and we are ready for the next stage, which is to paint the outer frames a darker gray. For that I have chosen a let's see, this was sky gray, so I think we're going to go dark sea gray for the outsides of the doors. I think that'll be a good color. It's sea gray, which means it's going to be the cooler side of gray. It's not like a camo gray, which is a warm gray. One thing I have decided, or one thing I have learned over the years, is not to mix my warms and cools. To try to pick one side of the fence and kind of stay on that side when you're doing interiors or like-minded parts of the same ship. Now, the only time I'll break that rule is if I am trying to do paneling, like on the outside of the Discovery, where I mixed some warms and cools, but then I also blended those all together with an overcoat. These I will not be putting a blending overcoat on, so I want to stick with that cool spectrum, and that means the dark sea gray is what I'm going to be using. So let's throw some in the brush. I've got it, like I said, I've got them masked off inside and out in this case. I know some folks who have opened up the window on the outside of the airlock hull of the Jupiter 2 on the outside door. They've opened up that window, and if you do that, or if you open up that entire door, you will see the inside of this wall and of that door. So that's why I masked that one as well. So let's get some dark paint in the brush and get these painted. Okay, so I've sprayed the dark gray on, and then I let that dry for a few minutes, and then I took the outer tape off, the yellow painter's tape, and I'm going to let this dry a little bit longer before I peel the masks off, and then we will know what our actual colors are going to look like, but I have a feeling they're going to look something like that, because those are the two grays. The landing gear walls, I am not going to be painting those the same tan as the interior walls. Those are going to be, that's the color of the wall, since they're in the landing bays. They don't really need to have all the fancy paint color on it. Yeah, I mean, you really have to look up and squint up the top of the stairs to even see them. So and you figure they are about half the scale of actual doors. If that's a full-size door, that's a mini-sized door, so your Robinsons are really ducking out of the way to even leave through those doors. But this is the spot next. We're going to let this dry, and then we'll go on to, really, we're just going to have to treat all of these panel walls as something individual, but we are a fur piece away from that right now, because I still need to get the landing gear wells in, and then get the circuit board put down. Alright, so here's a bit of showy progress. You know how I like showy progress. Got the floor with the circle in the center, and this is part of the masking set that comes with the window masks and the door masks. It is a simple brown circle of vinyl that you can lay down on top of the floor and you are done. You don't have to paint a special circle. Even though the circle is scribed in the floor, all you need to do, and I could have done a better job of making sure there was no dust trapped under it. You can use a soapy water technique if you want to worry about that. This you're not going to be able to see a lot of those once you have all the rest of the stuff that's happening in here. Thank you, Mr. Compressor. Once you have all the stuff that's going on in here, plus seeing it at the angle that you're going to see it at. So I'm not wildly concerned about that, but I wish I had done a slightly cleaner job of it. But that's the floor down, and this is ready to be... actually, I have to start attaching the lighting to the bottom of this. So I have to put the lighting into the bottom of the hull and then lay the floor down and attach whatever bulbs need to be attached to it. So then we'll build, obviously we build the sidewalls onto it. Okay, I think I'm ready to pull the masks off of these doors and glue them in place. The weird thing is about these doors, they have this hole in here where there's supposed to be a window, and they advise you to paint the back of the top of the stairwell black so that it looks like a black window there. I forgot to do that in time to get before I put the steps in, and they are impossible to get to now. So all I'm going to do is take a little piece of black vinyl, since I've got my vinyl out right now, and just do a little bit of black vinyl over just in the spot where those windows would be, to cover those over, and then actually it will give you the nice black window effect. It'll look, well, if I cut a piece small enough, you'll see it'll look something like this at the top of the stairs. There you go. Just remove the masks from one of the tiny doors. You can't get that clean of a paint job with Tamiya tape, I guarantee you. That's sweet. And for a detail that will hardly be seen. But this is why I like it. Because I'm too lazy to paint that by hand. Well, this is nice. Got the masks off of the door. I think they turned out pretty sharp. I even took the time to paint a little bit of the silver highlights in. And of course, as I go over each of these walls individually, I will go back in and touch up some paint where you might have a little smidge of an overspray or something like that. But I'm 99% happy with how they are right now. So let me clear these off of the deck, and we'll put these small landing gear doors in place. Okay, now I think the best way to handle these small doors is to push them in and then glue them from the back, rather than trying to glue them and put glue on them and then push the doors into position, because they're kind of difficult to jockey around. But once they're in place, they're pretty easy to glue, because the slots come through the back here, and it'd be easy to just put a little bit of the glue on it from that side. Oh, I forgot. There's one I forgot to peel the masks off of. Oh, and it's got some silver details on it too. Let me put that aside for right now. But let's get. I've got the black vinyl stuck in the back wall of the wheel. I keep calling them wheel wells, of the landing gear wells. So we jockey this in, push it in, and now I could just run a little bead of glue around these nubs right here, and that will lock them in. So let's do that. Okay, this is going to start going quickly now. I've got the back walls in. Whether you can see up there, yeah, you can see up the top of that stairwell there. So now I can start putting the sidewalls in. And they've been pre-painted. They're ready to go. And yeah, it's going to start picking up speed now. Okay, it's belt and suspenders times, kids. I've got all of the sidewalls in. I've got them drying. They have been put in with the MEK glue. What I want to do now is whip up a batch of the 5-minute clear epoxy, and I'm going to reinforce all of these joints with a clear epoxy, and that's going to strengthen, and it's going to substantiate, and it's going to give weight and heft and all of that stuff. And that's the next step. And then I'll tell you what the next step is after that. But right now I want to go in and just line some of these with, this is where I really wish I had the 1-minute epoxy with the syringe, because this is what I would normally do, is syringe around all of these joints and just solidify everything. Alrighty, I've got the epoxy laid in around all 3 of these landing bays, or landing gear wells, and yes, I took 5 minutes out to go online and order myself a metric blank ton of the 1-minute epoxy in the syringe from a retailer who will still carry it. Now, I am a big proponent of buying local and supporting your local stores, but if they're not going to carry the products that I want, there's not much I can do about that, except to try to find it online. And you may scoff at that, but hey, that's capitalism for you. So this is going to set up quickly and nicely, and you can see it's on. Well, you can't see, I can see, you can't because you're not here. That it's already set up on some spots. It did take me two rounds of mixing to get enough to do what I needed to get done. Some of this stuff that has dried on the top of it, I got overzealous and I started putting some on the top of these landing gear bays, and then realized that I have to fit a floor on top of these, so it might not behoove me to put extra stuff here until I see exactly where the floor is gonna sit on this. The further out you get to the edge, the less I'm worried about it, but some of this stuff right here could end up being interfered with. So let that cure. I've got hot glue warming up, the hot glue gun warming up, so that I can hot glue the circuit boards down, and really that's the next step. Okay, I have stuffed the ever-present fiberfill underneath this circuit board, and then put a little bit of hot glue on that center post that you're supposed to add as per the instructions, and not finding that to be very supportive, but it's a good start. So I think what I'm going to do to add to that is that I am going to use some electrical tape. Let me trim some of the overflow fluff out of the way. Use some electrical tape and just tape around the edge there. Excuse me. And hopefully that will help secure that down. Okay, I'm just testing the circuit out before I get too much further to make sure everything is working as it should. That is very nice. Very happy with that. So I think we're good enough. I don't know whether I need to seal this down anymore. I sure would like to put something over that reinforces that, but don't know exactly what that would be. Maybe I could do something like that. If I could take a stiff piece of stock here and just bridge across there and kind of glue it down like that, that would be a good thing, because that would keep it in position. So let's do that. Okay, I've got the switch put back in place. I've got the board wired in. I am running it through its paces now to make sure that it's doing what it's supposed to do. That's the startup. That is the faster speed. And that is the slow down. And then that fades to off. Turns on, it fades up, it starts, and then it picks up speed. The second switch is a cruising speed. Press it again, it slows back down. And then off again. Lovely. Now to do the major boards that need to get glued down in place. Okay, I've brought the floor in just to see how everything is going to sit. Make sure the wiring fits around everything. And I've already run into one issue that was not on the instructions. They said to put these 3 holes in for the console lighting. They also said some stuff about over here. They did not mention this. This needs to be channeled out to allow the switch, that's the fusion core switch that goes underneath here. It's no big deal. I just need to cut a little half moon out of there, but it's something that you should know that they did not mention. It's coming up on closing time for today, and I'm happy with the progress that I made. I didn't get the floor glued down, and that's okay because there's a lot of stuff that has to get attached to it. But I did get all of those little doors painted, so that's in the plus column. That was something I wasn't expecting to get done so soon. So I'll take the trade where I can get it. I am training the wires out to go to the places that they're going to eventually end up going. So I'm just trying to keep them straight out so that I don't get them all confuzzled of where they're going to go. I can see myself in the next steps getting the lighting ready to go on the floor, and then doing each individual wall segment as it comes up. So at least that's the thinking right now. That's subject to change. But yeah, that's a good spot to leave it for today. Welcome back, everybody. It's Thursday. It's the gateway to the weekend, and we are continuing the lighting on the Jupiter 2 now. To borrow the intro to one of the episodes, or most of the episodes, if you recall, last week we left the Robinsons in dire peril, unaware that just around the corner something worse was lurking. It's not bad news this week. It's actually going pretty well now. There is one hiccup that I've run into, and I remember this happening on the last build that I did, and we're going to take steps to rectify it here too. But the first thing I want to do is to channel the lights into the landing gear wells and bundle those up. Now I will say Moebius has provided plenty of wire on these lights. I know they probably buy their wiring in bulk, but or the company that made up these circuits. But there is plenty of wire, particularly for the landing gear. Now, what I've been doing as I go through them is that I have been using up the wire as I have been designating it. Like when I put the switch wire in, and once I know I've taken the switch and put it where it goes, I cut the stupid tag off of them because you don't need the tag on it after you've got it where it's going. So that does neaten up things quite a bit. But here are the 3 landing gear lights. And I'm going to go ahead and cut the tag off of those. Very careful not to cut the wiring, just the tag. And let's get that out of the way. And then I can separate them and put them where they need to go. The funny thing is, as I said, plenty of extra wire. There's one that goes right here. I mean, the board is right here. You could have gotten away with doing a very short string of wire, and I've got maybe, a foot of wire left over here. But rather than trying to cut it all short and resolder it and do all that, I'm just going to put it in place and then bundle it up with a twist tie and neaten it that way. I did move, for some reason they had the other 2 landing gear lights up here on the circuit board rather than over here next to the other one. So I just swapped those out. Now I'm hesitant to do that in any case because I know different colors of LEDs require different resistance, and all of the resistors are on the board. But in this case, I was swapping out white for white, so I'm presuming that the resistors were the same for both of those circuits. So now that I've got all three LEDs down here on the corner of the board all together, I can, like I said, go through and, you know, just glue those in where they need to go. And then I'll get on to the bigger issue, which is what I started off talking about. Okay, 3 down, a dozen or so more to go. I'm doing a bit of what I call wire tidy. I didn't come up with that phrase. One of the channels that I love to watch on, hopefully on a daily basis, is Wayne Green's World of Wayne. Big shout out to World of Wayne on his YouTube channel. He does part work builds, something I don't have the patience for. I did one part work build, and that was the R2, and it was it was a 100 issue build, and I tore through that in like 10 sessions of 10 issues a piece. I just don't have the patience for it. But he does marvelous part work builds, and he also does the odd occasional scratch build kit build, or a garage kit build. And he has this marvelous phrase called wire tidy, which is the process of going through and just neatening up your electrics and making sense of your wiring and keeping them all straight and civilized looking. And I just love that phrase, so I stole it wholesale. So I'm doing some wire tidy here, and I'm trying to feed these wires in a way that will keep the floor clear of them. Plus, it kind of gears them to where they're going to end up coming up out of the floor. Like these two, which are the ones I swapped for the stair and the elevator, that's going to be back on that side. So I'm going to go ahead and fish those through underneath everything else. And I'm going to pushing the tags up towards the end so that I know what they're for, but getting them out of the way. And I can go ahead and kind of channel them out the way they're going to go. These ones stay over here because these ones deal with the freezing tubes and the back wall and all of that. And these are the 3 that go out to the main console, and I think I'm going to do those next. Where we're running into the problem is, and again, this is what I alluded to earlier, there is a spot where, I'll go ahead and put this back in place to show you. Let's get the floor lined up on all the little pegs that it snaps into. Okay, that's the floor down where it's supposed to go. There is a blue LED, a blue freezer tube LED that comes up right through here, and there's a landing gear well right in its way, so you have to do everything in your power to minimize this bulb. So, or you pick one. I mean, I'm going to use this first one here. You need to flatten it, but even flattening it might not do it. So we're going to start with flattening it, and that is pushing everything at a 90-degree angle. And then we're going to put it under this, put it up into the floor, and see if that's going to be enough. See if I can make the floor lay down flat where it's supposed to be. Now that's sticking up above. What do you know? What do you know? What can you say? Look at that. Beautiful. That was 1/10 to maybe 1/100th of the problem I thought it was going to be. Because that goes over the top of it, and then a clear tube goes up from there. But I can see the light block that needs to happen, so I'm going to have to paint that mightily. But I've got 3 of these that come up through the floor. So we're going to go ahead and put those in place and glue them down. And then we've got these 3 for the console. And then we've got the white. Oh, okay. Well, we've got quite a few more bulbs that need to be taken care of. But that was, man, I made a much ado out of nothing over that. Okay. On we go. Alrighty, I am finishing up the lighting on the floor deck of the Jupiter 2 at least, and these last two are for the elevator, and this little block here, this little box I just made, is for the what goes under the stairwell. That's supposed to be the light from the lower level shining up through, and I wanted to capture as much of that light. I didn't want it just spilling out over everywhere, so I put it in this nice little white box that will sit under the floor and hopefully brighten up that box, but it's far enough away that you won't be able to see down into the stairwell. You'll just see a white light there. So let me get this last bit glued down, and then we'll be ready to flip the whole floor down and nail it into place. Okay, so all of these walls are just standing in place right now, just to kind of show how everything is going to shake out. But I've got the floor hot glued in. I am waiting for my big old order of 1 minute epoxy. Now, I know I am at least a week away from closing this up, so I'm not in any hurry to close the top down. But I am to the point where I've got everything on the floor nailed down. I just want to like go around the edge of it with the epoxy to really seal it. But that's going to wait until my shipment, and believe me, it's going to be a crate. When my crate O epoxy arrives next week, I'll be able to do that. I want to make sure my wiring is down and it is in place and it is not going to burn out or anything, so I'm leaving this go for a good long while. You can see how the box back here is channeling the light up the stairwell, but you can see through the back of that box, so that shows me that once I get around to that panel, one of the things I want to do is to put a back on that. So right now I'm trying to decide just where do I want to start, and I think I want to start right up front with the with the nav console and the seats and all that. So that'll be the first area that I start. So I will start with this wall, which means removing everything else and then working my way around and ending up with the freezing tubes. So the next step would be to take all of these walls that I've got and paint or mask off this darker brown, and then paint the lighter beige tan around all of that. So I'm going to get all of these walls out, everything that's going to get this light tan on it. I'm going to go ahead and pull all of those out and paint that. Okay, so we got one last bit of business to conduct before we close down for the evening, and that is to go ahead and remove all of these masks now that they have done their job. And now we've got, just like that, we've got a nice wall with the dark brown side bit preserved, and then those will be ready to stand up around the perimeter of the top deck. Well, the only deck of the Jupiter 2 that we've got. Go ahead and finish these. See, me do this big one here. Oops, doing it on camera would help. And as I've always said, these colors are my choices. They don't have to be yours. I think with the minimal amount of lighting that is happening inside, that I wanted to make sure that there was a nice contrast between these colors, since a subtle difference might not have been picked up as easily by the LED lighting. And let's see, this one doesn't have anything on it. This one does. And again, so much easier to do this with a vinyl shape than to try to cut little bits of Tamiya tape and work that around the angles, particularly these curves up front. So much easier to do them with a piece of vinyl. Afternoon, everybody. It's Friday. It's Frantic Friday. It's one of those days where I've got 19 things that I'm juggling at one time. But certainly one of the most important of those things is working on the Jupiter 2. And I am going around today on all of the silver bits. Now, I had promised that I would start tackling these different wall segments one at a time, but it's coming up to be more practical for me to go around and do like all of the brown, and then all of the cockpit green, and then all of the black, which in this case I'm using rubber black, and I really like how that's looking on these seats. That is not your typical black. I think this is a much nicer look, and I'm debating whether I want to go in and do the inserts on the sides, since you're never really going to see them, and I think the shadow line is doing the job well enough. The Jupiter 2 is second only to the Seaview in, and coincidentally both Irwin Allen properties, that if you can't see it through the open window, you ain't gonna see it. And it's a damn shame, because there's so much good detail in the Jupiter 2 that I'm not going to ignore, but certainly not going to spend a whole lot of back-breaking time and labor getting them to be just perfect if you can't see it through the open window. Case in point is the probably the hardest thing to see, which is this side viewer. Now, you're never going to see the side viewer because it's right in that open window. I mean, the window's right here, and the other porthole is back this hallway here, so you're never going to see that. So I'm wondering how much time to really invest in that. Other things like the details in the where is it? It is this guy here. The detail in the food processor and all this circuit board here. I'm wondering how much time and energy to really devote to that, if, like I said, you're not going to see it. So what I'd like to do is go around here. I have to run out to the store and pick up some cockpit green, because this green here is not deep enough. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pick a wall and then start working my way around. And I think the first thing I'm going to do is the pilot console and the seats, to kind of get those stuck in place. So join me on the top deck details. Okay, you'll have to forgive the noise in the background, but like I said, it's one of those days everything's going nuts. I am taking some time here to work on the console for the main piloting console of the Jupiter 2. Now, luckily, as luck would have it, that's why I mean luckily, I've got this handy sheet O Paragraphics Photoetch. And while I'm not going to use all of it on the Jupiter 2, I am going to use the 3 main screens, because the really fat, clear parts that are designed to go there are no bueno. I don't care for them. There are some decals that are meant to go in behind the scopes here, but I have to say that if I were pressed, I would not use these. Now, since I have those other alternatives, I will be using the other alternatives. And what really all I need to do is to take a clear piece of PETG, or clear piece of a styrene, use that as a backer, and then let the photo etch act as a light mask, and let it shine up through there, and everything will be hunky-dory. The first thing you need to do when dealing with this is, since the lights in the floor are 3 bulbs, the 2 green bulbs and a yellow bulb in the center, is you need to find a way to segregate those colors. I am not normally for segregation, but you need to separate these colors from spilling over into each other. And really all that entails is just putting some sort of cardstock in between them, and then perhaps maybe some of that chrome tape to reflect the light, So I'm going to pull out some sheet stock and we're going to do that thing right now. And then I think what I need to do on this is to, yes, Mr. Compressor, I'm aware. What I need to do is to put some primer on that, some metal etching primer so that the paint will stick. Okay, I've got the dividers put in. I just cut them out of some sheet stock, and I've got some other pieces here cut for these inserts that I'll put the brass over top of, and then we will see how they look once the light's shining on them. Let's build these 3 boxes now. These are on the 3 identical trees. As I said before, and I'll say again, this is how you make a kit like this practical, is that you take anything that you've got multiples of, put them on the same tree, and then shoot multiple copies of that tree, and that's how you make it practical. I mean, sure, you could have put them all nice and orderly on the same tree and only done one of them, but then, as I have been schooled in the fine art of model making or model producing, the tooling is the single most expensive part of the whole process. So if you can economize your tooling, you can make your model. That's the difference between making a model that is practical and profitable and not. So since there are 3 of these, they put them on 3 different trees. Now again, the nice thing about not having to worry about lighting anything more than what comes in the actual kit, the lighting kit, is that I can kind of sail through this bit because I'm not worried about running any lights through there. So who knows? I have seen people make a career out of doing nothing but running fiber optics into these. Duo. And Traso. Okay, we'll put those aside and let those dry. There is a part right here. I gotta go chase that down and see what that part is numbered. What is that number part? That is part number 83. So let's find part number 83. There's only one of them, so chances are it's on this single sprue. 83, here you be. 83. And little dab of the MEK. Brush it on here. Actually, I could put that on from the back, but let's see if it doesn't interfere with the... No, it goes right to the one side of the wall, so we're good. And then these guys simply slot into here. Ooh, I gotta shave those down a little bit. Okay, it's getting kind of into the late afternoon on Friday, and I need to shut down for the week. But I wanted to give you an overview of what I got done, and what I'm going to do is go grab the bottom half of the hull of the ship from the other room and lay as much of this stuff in place without gluing it down that I can, and give you a big picture kind of an overview. Well, holy cow, when you put it together like that, I got quite a lot done this week. I was just piecing everything that I had done together, and the more I did, the more impressive it started looking. Here, hopefully you can tell what a good job that card did in segregating the light, even on what you can see spilled back on the floor. Let me take you over top so you can see. See, we isolated the yellow from the green so you don't get that overspill, because those green lights are very strong and will overpower anything near them. The light over the gyro is just in well, all of this stuff is just in temporarily.
haven't done anything with the freezing tubes yet. And this was probably the last little bit I worked on, was this console here. But yeah, when you look at it like this, it is quite the nifty proposition. Now again, as I said, everything you see is going to be what you can see inside that front window. Oh, and let me do the engines, the engine lights. That's important. That's showy. That's sexy. Make sure you can see under there. There you go. And the landing gear wells all have their lights in them as well. Move that piece out, and of course this control has various settings on it. I just speed everything up, and then a medium speed, and then fade out to off. But yeah, I know it's a shame to cover this whole big thing with the top, but it's got to be done. But that's the first time I've had these walls in, and they look pretty nice. Now those bare bulbs will get diffused a little bit by the time I put the tubes in. But that's a heck of a good first week's of work.
And so that, dear friends, brings us to the end of week 1. What promises to be a very fun and exciting build of the Jupiter 2. I have to say that this light kit, it's a bit pricey, I'll grant you that, but I'll tell you, it is also for the convenience and the ease of use and having all the boards wired. It's a bargain. It's a bargain at this price, because I've seen other ready-made light kits for models that were not this inclusive and not this functional and not this extensive, and for not much less. The fact that it's got I'd have been happy if it only had the circuit for the fusion core, because those can get kind of pricey. And the fact that I didn't have to do any soldering is a wonderful thing. So yeah, I'm reevaluating my opinion on that light kit, because I thought, when I saw the price tag on it, it's like, yeesh, that's expensive. But no, for the time that you save and the and all the stuff that it does, it's well worth the shekels. Like I said, this is the end of week 1. Week 2, we are going to really dive into each one of these different alcove panels and do them one by one, and then we'll be able to put the big top on and seal it all up, get it done. Waiting for my crate epoxy to come in the mail next week, that I will be epoxying everything down once I've got it set. So until then, y'all be good, be safe, stay cool. It's hot out there, kids. Oh, it's hot out there. We'll see you here next week.